Welcome, my spooky friends. If this is your first time to my channel, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Emily, and today we are doing yet again another Spooky Sunday. Let's go ahead and jump right on in. So in today's Spooky Sunday, we are going to be continuing the series that I've done here for the last 3 weeks or so, I believe, on American Horror Story in real life topic. So this series consists of an event or a character or something in American Horror Story that actually is inspired or that happened in real life. And there's a lot to cover, and I absolutely love the show, and I absolutely love creepy and weird and true crime related things, so I figured this would be perfect for Spooky Sunday. But today we're going to be talking about a character that I absolutely despise, and he is from American Horror Story Asylum, the second season, and so many American Horror Story fans absolutely hate this dude. And if you knew that there was a true story behind him and something that actually happened involving the US government that influenced his character, then things would make sense to why this character is so hateable. Now, as I said, we're talking about American Horror Story Asylum today, which was the second season, and today the character that we're going to be talking about is Dr. Arthur Arden or Dr. Hans Gruber, both the same character, just different identities. Now, he was the physician at Briarcliff Manor, which was the asylum, obviously, what the season was based around, and he was this horrible physician that did these awful experiments on people. He was really mean, he was really nasty, and he would just take people away and start experimenting on them, and he would basically turn them into flesh-eating zombies by giving them a altered version of tuberculosis. He was trying to turn these people into superhumans and super mutants and whatever to be able to fight an up-and-coming war if there was one, because this takes place right after World War II, when people were still really concerned of there being another war. I mean, we're always concerned of that, but they were even more so concerned back then. And for good reason, let's be honest here. But in the show, he does these experiments on these people by giving them the tuberculosis, like I said. He does all sorts of weird experiments on these poor victims of the asylum, and it's just awful, and I freaking hate this guy, and everyone who watched the season hates him. I mean, there's no redeeming qualities about this guy. Now, in Briarcliff Manor, which was the asylum of the season, he went under the name Dr. Arthur Arden. That's what everyone in the asylum called him, all of the staff called him that, and all of the patients called him that. But it was exposed that his real name was Dr. Hans Gruber, and he was actually a Nazi war criminal, more specifically the Angel of Death Nazi war criminal that would do experiments on humans in the concentration camps. Now, that sounds familiar. That is because he's based off of a real Nazi war criminal. Now, when I first watched the show, I automatically knew that that's who they were talking about. I mean, it was pretty obvious once they mentioned Nazis and human experiments. I think everyone's mind kind of travels to this one specific scumbag dude. But there might be some people out there who don't actually know that he was based after Dr. Joseph Mengele, aka the Angel of Death. Now, Dr. Joseph Mengele was a Nazi war criminal, obviously, and he was a physician and an officer for the Nazis. His military service was active from 1938 until 1945. He started working at the Dachau concentration camp, but he eventually moved over to Auschwitz, which is where he would perform his famous experiments. Now, he was the main physician at Auschwitz, and he was in charge of many things, such as giving the Zyklon B gas to the poor victims in the concentration camp. He was in charge of monitoring people's sicknesses and dealing with the dead bodies and just all sorts of weird stuff. But the atrocities that he did in his free time were far worse beyond anything I think anyone could have imagined. He would do experiments on these poor concentration camp victims who were already going through so much. He would take twins and experiment on them, and I think that's what he's most well known for. I think everyone has heard of the twin experiments from the concentration camps, and that all goes back to Joseph Mengele. He would also do experimentation with changing people's eye colors, which, if you think about that and think about the type of experiments he probably did, oh my gosh, horrifying. Can't even imagine. He would do experiments on people with dwarfism, and he would do experiments on people with physical abnormalities and just physical disabilities in general. I'm pretty sure the urban legend of the evil mad scientist really stems back from him. I mean, I'm sure there was some before him, but everyone knows the evil mad scientist as being Dr. Joseph Mengele. So obviously we can see some similarities between Dr. Arden and Joseph Mengele. And unfortunately, the story to Joseph Mengele does not end as great as I was hoping, and when I was reading up on this, I was really hoping that he went to jail and died in jail, or, you know, I was hoping that he got what he deserved, but he actually escaped and ended up fleeing somewhere. People have kind of guessed where he ended up fleeing to, but there was so many sightings of him all over, from 1945 basically to like the early 70s, and unfortunately he literally basically got away with this, which is awful, and he's probably suffering for it now, just saying. But in American Horror Story, luckily they gave us a little bit more of a happy ending, if you will, if you want to call it that, and Dr. Arden, or Hans Gruber, ended up dying and basically burning alive. Morbid, but deserved. Now, other than Joseph Mengele, there was actually another thing that they implemented into Horror Story around Dr. Arden, or Dr. Hans Gruber, that actually happened in real life. Now, basically, once everyone in the show found out that he was actually a Nazi war criminal, people were really upset. I mean, obviously, why would people be okay with that? But one of the characters was trying to figure out how he even got hired there in the first place. I mean, how did he get from being a Nazi war criminal to coming to America and working as a physician in a mental institute, especially when he is like that Nazi war criminal, the angel of death, the one that did all the experiments on people? How did he end up getting from there to here? Well, in the show, the character basically explains that he came over from Germany to America through the US government, through a special project that they had going on, because they wanted to recruit the Germans to help out the US with all the information that they had found out from doing their experiments and from doing the concentration camps and all this awful stuff. Americans allegedly wanted this information. So they figured it was a win-win deal. They would scratch the Germans back by letting them come to America and get a new identity and live free of being in the Nazi society, while the Germans would scratch the Americans back and basically get all this information and knowledge that the Germans had gained. Now, this sounds like some kind of messed up joke, but let me tell you, it is not. This is not fiction. This is an actual thing that happened, and it was called Operation Paperclip. From 1945 to 1959, the US basically recruited in and took under their wing 1,500 German Nazi soldiers to work with the US government. And they invited them into the US, you know, harm-free and under a new identity where people wouldn't recognize them, with the promise that the Americans would gain everything there is to know that the Germans had on rockets. If you think about the time period, this was the time when basically everyone was trying to get into space and people just wanted this information so bad. Everyone wanted to beat one another, and instead of working together, everyone just took their own path and wanted to be the first one to get all of this space information, all this space technology. And the Germans had a pretty decent amount of it. So by making this treaty, so many Nazi German scientists were living in the US, and there is one in particular that is extremely well known, Werner von Braun, and the US at the time viewed him as valuable and viewed his information as valuable. You know, he had all this information on rockets that we didn't have, so instead of, you know, condemning these people and putting them away and giving them what they deserved, basically to rot in jail, we accepted them, we took them in. And a lot of US citizens to this day do not even have a clue that this is going on, that this went on back in the day, because obviously they're not going to teach you this in history class. But when I was watching American Horror Story Asylum, I thought it was so interesting that Ryan Murphy decided to use this as part of the Dr. Arden character, and I think that it's interesting that no matter what way you look at it, the character is actually based around real events. All of his personality traits, all of the things he did, even where he came from, it's all based off of two different events that actually happened in real life, which is one reason why I love this show. I love that he puts in real life events, and I love that he'll literally stack up like multiple real life events onto one character. But that is going to be wrapping up this week's Spooky Sunday. I know that was a little bit dark, and I know it was kind of hard to listen to with some of those things, but that's a character that so many people that are into the show like absolutely hate. Maybe you've seen the show before and you didn't know that he was actually based off of a real person and a real life event. And I think it's really interesting that he was even a character to begin with, because he's such an evil and scary character from the start, and it makes sense why he is. But with that being said, I think that is all that I have for you guys today. I do hope that you consider subscribing if you have not already. I am doing Spooky Sunday every single Sunday, and during the rest of the week, I got all sorts of makeup goodness happening here on this channel. So if you are not already subscribed and you would like to be, I would love to see you hit that subscribe button down below. I do also hope that you consider giving this video a big old thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and if you want to know when I'm posting, go ahead and ring that notification bell. But I hope that you are having an absolutely amazing and slightly spooky day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye!